So whether it's the conversations you have, word choice, the way that you dress, the way you present yourself, what you put online, whether it's on your LinkedIn, your Facebook, the first thing that you think of when you see these images, first person.
So we're seeing John Wick,
John Wick,
Matrix.
Matrix,
Adil has mentioned Baba Yaga.
Baba Yaga from John Wick.
Yeah. All right. So, with that, I am going to introduce you all to our speaker today, who is Mr. Randall. And let me just give you a quick introduction about Randall. So, Randall has overall 20 years of training, soft skills, personality development, and leadership experience across multiple geographies and businesses, including finance, healthcare, and now technology. And Randall has been with us with ITBD for 1 year, and he says that he can't have enough great things to talk about the people and the culture of ITBD. So, Randall, we would love to learn from you today that how we can build our personal brand at work. And over to you.
All right, thanks, Anna. And good morning, everyone. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
All right. I had a bit of some trouble getting to work today. I don't know how it is in your countries, but when Friday comes along, traffic is pretty bad over here. So, I'm sitting there on a bus. It actually takes quite a lot to make me late. And I knew that I would get here on time, but I wanted to really get here with a lot of prep time. And I was thinking, the time that I spent in traffic gave me some time to reflect as to why it was so important to me to be the person who was there earlier than most people. Why it was something that I wanted for myself when it came to not just being on time, but being uh, particularly early. And I realized a lot of it was because that's something I wanted people to associate with me. Meaning, when people say my name, they think, "Oh, this is Randall is someone who we know will not just be here 15 minutes at a time, but maybe 30 minutes at a time." Right. So someone we can rely on, someone who we know is always going to be on, who is always is not going to be tardy, right, and take steps in case that is going to happen. This ties in to what we're going to be talking about today, and that is building your personal brand at work. So, according to at least to Mr. Bezos, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And we're just going to have a little bit of an activity here. And when we see some of these images and these pictures, some of them are maybe familiar to many of you. For some, if you're unfamiliar with it, it's fine, okay, because that is part of the exercise. And some of them may be a little controversial and potentially triggering, but I'm asking you to stick with me in order to make a point at the end. And the question is, what thoughts, right, or emotion or idea, right, do you get when you see any of the following pictures? And the first one is this.
So, we have a few answers in the chat at Randall. I don't know if you can see it, but we have a lot of answers. Expensive, show off, Starbucks, Queen, relax, break time,
Okay.
expensive again, overhyped. That's another one for Starbucks. Okay. Air conditioned,
Okay, great.
overpriced coffee. Oh my God, Starbucks means so much to so many people. Talk over a cup of coffee, good coffee, energy. Beautiful
Okay.
answers.
All right. And we're getting very, very different answers here. Some people say
Yeah.
it's overhyped, overrated, but some people just go with good coffee. Even that word, the word luxury, a lot of people do
Yeah.
associate the word Starbucks with
Starbucks.
luxury, meaning maybe not something that can be afforded every day. And in some cases, some people say, like, I'm not even spending my money on that. But for some, it's comforting. It's something that they can think, all right, I think Starbucks, I think hang out with friends or being able to take a break, right? And everyone associates something different with that brand, that picture. Okay, how about the next one?
So NBA, Jordan, Nike, expensive, Jordan, sport, shoes, GOAT, Michael Jordan, legacy, basketball, MJ,
Okay, so MJ
legacy,
Sports, Legacy.
legacy, comfort.
And the funny thing is, we are still aware that this brand is still being is basically a co-brand of Nike, right? And we all know Nike. Okay, but now you sometimes you're going to see a pair of Jordans without the swoosh, without the Nike swoosh. You just see this picture, right? It's been established as such a sturdy and reliable brand that you can put a picture of this on any shoe, and a lot of people are going to pay a pretty penny just for this. Right. And I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Air. Has anyone seen it with Matt Damon? It talks about the building of the Air Jordan brand. It talked about how instrumental his mother was in the building of the brand as she managed his not just his brand but his name. Meaning when it was proposed that he lent his name to that particular shoe, right? There was some pushback. Some people were saying, why did you give up your name for that brand? And the mom said, well, I think that it's the best decision at the time. And we all saw that because of that decision, which also ties into making a decision when it counts and when it calls for it, that it was a really great decision. Until now, MJ's been out of the game for over a decade, and people still know this brand. People still know Jordans, and people still would like to buy Jordans if possible. Not everyone, of course, but a lot of people. Okay, how about this one? If you're not from the Philippines, I wouldn't blame you if you don't know this.
So we have Chicken Joy, Home, Chimkin, Pudding, Kids, Happiness, Comfort, Jolly, Hungry, Smiley Chef, Gravy, Birthday, Spaghetti, Great Smile, Me. Mark is saying me.
Okay, and one thing I'm noticing here is there are a lot of positive words when it comes to this particular symbol. So who knows or who would like to explain to our counterparts not from the Philippines what this brand is? Okay, Mark, since you say this is you, well, all right. What is this? Can you explain this to our colleagues over in India and the US?
The Jollibee. Yeah. Well, actually, Jollibee is like the McDonald's in the U.S. So, yeah. Well, actually, this is a fast food chain. I think. Yeah. And that's it. It's actually like McDonald's in the U.S.
All right, but it's not just a fast food chain in the sense that it's a place where you get food. A lot of people
Right.
would think things like kids, childhood, comfort, like meaning a lot of us associate this, especially in the Philippines, with a place that we have attended kids' parties and that some people would go to after church on a Sunday, or they can rely on it to at least be reliably good food, whatever, whether it's a date, going with friends, going with family. So there's a lot of nostalgia tied into this brand. Okay, thanks, Mark. And how about this one? Okay, so if you're not from India, this is where we will need some help.
So for Dabur, it's oil, honey, Dabur honey, health, medicine. It's a very big brand in India. It's a very well renowned brand.
And it's, correct me if I'm wrong, Anna, but it's one of the oldest brands in India, right?
One of the oldest, yes. Cuff, Dabur Amla, Chyawanprash, OG, Goat, Trust. Everything under one roof, Ashish says, Ashish Paul. Trust, old as gold, Manu says,
All right, so everything I think from honey to cooking oil to I think even
everything.
cosmetics.
Um, no, not cosmetics. No,
Not cosmetics.
no,
Right?
not
It's
cosmetics.
one of the oldest kitchen brands I think in India, and I think
Yes.
most people grew up with it. Maybe even their parents and grandparents grew up with it, so it's old, reliable.
Yeah, it is reliable. A lot of people have their trust in this brand in India.
Okay, now this next one, this is the one I'm saying may be a little controversial, but let's have a conversation about it. Okay, so what are we seeing in the chat?
Yes, so Hitler, Nazi, Elon, Elon Musk, this
Ouch.
is hooked, cross knot, swastika, mustache, different ideology, swastika at a different angle, small mustache, cruel.
Okay, so the majority of the comments we're seeing aren't exactly positive, right?
Yep, very
Okay,
true.
so and yes, because historically, when we see the symbol, we associate it mainly with the Nazi Party, World War II, genocide, hate, division, anti-Semitism, and for those of you who still, if you remember your stories from World War II, it was not a symbol that has a lot of positive thoughts associated with it. In fact, until now, there are certain divisive hate groups that use it as a symbol, and in fact, it's actually there are legal restrictions to displaying it in many European countries, including Amsterdam, Belgium, Germany, ironically enough, all right, and the Ukraine. So if you go to many of these places like Austria, there is a legal limit to how and when it can be displayed. to the point where people can actually take legal action if it is visible. Okay, but now I think some people also associate this with something entirely different, which has nothing to do with negativity. Would some of our colleagues from India care to chime in?
Are you referring to swastika or swastika?
All right, so that's actually what I was going for. Now, does anyone here know what its origin was, where it started from? Because usually when people see this, it's originally they just think instantly swastika and nothing positive. But Anna, you were talking about the origin, the swastika.
Yes, I was. But if anybody would like to answer, if anybody is aware, you can just put it in the chat, maybe. The origin.
Okay. And what are we seeing?
So we have an answer from Akash. He's saying origin from Sanskrit. Sangeeta is saying the word swastika comes from the Sanskrit word swastika, which means good fortune or well-being, auspicious, well-being or good fortune.
So well-being, good fortune, and Anna actually told me about the cultural significance it has. Where I think if you buy a new car or a
Yes.
new house, this is one of the things that you draw in or around the item for luck.
Yes, Armando just mentioned the same. He said new car in the house.
Oh, there you go. Right. Before today, the majority of the people here, did you have any idea that this actually originally came from a symbol that meant essentially good vibes, luck, auspiciousness? Usually, the first thing you think of is something horrible when you see the symbol. The use of the swastika is hundreds of years old. It definitely predates the Nazi Party. I don't know when it went from something positive to something that was used by some huge hate group. But now this is where we're to make the point that it's very possible for a brand to alter, to shift, depending on people's perception, the way it's used, and of course, if you see the original swastika, it looks pretty different, but the geometry is more or less the same. Okay, so that was pretty heavy. So let's end on a lighter note. Okay, what comes to mind when you see this?
Americano, my
Americano,
favorite.
Donuts, sugar.
donuts, sugar,
Seems delicious.
delicious. Okay, all right. And does anyone here still remember when it was still called Dunkin' Donuts? Okay, I found it interesting that the first thing that we heard here was not donuts, but Americano or coffee. Okay, so I think around 2018 or 2019, Dunkin' Donuts. Now, this is a really old brand. I think it's older than most of us here. And they wanted to show the world that it wasn't just about donuts. They offered other things. They offered sandwiches. They offered coffee. In fact, a lot of people I know go to Dunkin' for coffee, right, versus just donuts. So this is where they wanted to rebrand themselves, meaning they saw what they were being perceived as, and they wanted to change it. It was nothing negative, okay, but they want to show the world that we're more than that. We're different, right? We're not just about donuts. We're also about other products. So they removed the donuts, and now they're just simply Dunkin'. And now I think some stores, they just have the D or two Ds. All right. So thanks everyone. Which brings us to this other question: do you feel a person can be a brand? Okay, so now we're going to dive into this. We're going to see a few pictures of people and just the first thing that you think of when you see these images. First person. Okay, first thing you think of,
Humble.
humble. Okay. What else are we seeing in the chat?
So we're seeing John Wick,
John Wick,
Matrix,
Matrix,
um, Mohammed Adil has mentioned Baba Yaga.
Baba Yaga from John Wick,
Yeah. And then we have Idol, Matrix, Dog Lover,
dog lover.
Generous Person, Charity, Bike Lover, Down to Earth.
Okay. Don't kill his dog. All right. I think a lot of
Yes.
people think that. Okay. I still remember him when he was Ted from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. That's a really old movie, but I think very few people have anything negative to say about him. Usually, when you see Keanu Reeves, you're thinking either action star or humble or down to earth. One of the few celebrities who haven't been canceled. How about this fella? Okay, what are we seeing?
We're seeing Windows,
Windows,
Microsoft, Genius,
Microsoft.
Windows, MS, Wealth, Microsoft, Charity, Billions, World's Biggest Farmer, OS, Bill Gates, billionaire, fast internet, OG.
Okay, one of the first people to have known to have started his business out of a garage, and he was able to grow it. And until now, when people see him, they associate him with someone who's just worked his way up. Okay, this next one. Okay, again, people who, if you're not from the Philippines, we wouldn't blame you if you don't know this fella.
Boxing.
Hey, okay. Sushant, what do you know about this fella?
I said boxing, Philippines, a persistent fighter who never loses hope, and gold medalist from one of the Olympics, if I remember correctly. So that's pretty much
Okay,
Manny
so
Manny Pacquiao. Yeah.
Manny Pacquiao. All right, great. Looks like he's known even outside of the country, even in India.
Yep.
All right. Now here's the thing. When he fought before 2017, uh, people have stories about when he used to fight. There would be no traffic on the streets. No one would be seen outside because they'd all be home watching him. There wouldn't be cops outside, but which would be fine because even criminals would be at home watching him. It would be a really quiet day in the country. And he really it's one of those stories where he worked his way up to the point where another brand wanted to be associated with him. And we all know this brand at the bottom, the swoosh. Okay, everyone knows this, of course.
Yep.
Nike. All right. And before 2017, he would see this brand on his shorts, on his trunks. The thing is, if you'll notice, after 2017, it disappeared. It was not used anymore. They did not endorse him. Does anyone know why this happened? Okay,
Nope.
it's not a very popular story because it was done very, very quickly. So, he was a pretty fundamentalist Christian. He still is, and he said a few things during one of his public, I think one of his social media posts that were a little hurtful and derogatory to members of the LGBTQ community. So this is an example of two brands that suddenly weren't aligned because he had his brand and a lot of people associated him with perseverance, with skill, and Nike is a lot of them they are about inclusivity, right? Not about the lifestyle. It's not about your preferences, your choices. If you like sports and you like being active, use our stuff. The minute that he presented that, or the minute he said those things, Nike already said, okay, so you have your brand, we have our brand. Our brands don't align. In a matter of a few weeks, they cut all ties, and he never heard from them again. He's still going strong, but at no point does Nike want to be associated with him anymore. All right. And how about this chap? Okay, so people from India, I think will have to educate us over here.
He's the king. He's the King Kohli, RCB GOAT, legend. King Kohli, RCB.
Okay,
So he's the King Kohli for us.
can you tell us who he is?
He's Virat Kohli.
And he is an athlete, right?
Cricketer.
Okay, so he plays cricket, and I think most people associate him with being one of the best, if not the best player in the cricket game from India.
Yes, he's also the chase master, the GOAT.
Okay, there. So a lot of people associate him with positivity and just being the guy when it comes to cricket. Right. And finally, here we go, another controversial one, who was actually mentioned in chat just a few minutes ago. Yeah, okay. All right. So what are we seeing in the chat?
So we're seeing Tesla, Musk, Alien, Twitter, Alien, Twitter, Tesla, Iron Man, Ruthless Genius, Space, SpaceX, Genius, Martian, Grok AI, Rocket AI, Innovation, Alone Musk, ALONE, Alone Musk, the real GOAT, Nerd, Troublemaker, Rich, I don't know, 12 children? I think father of 12 children, probably, this equation.
Oh, yeah, he has a lot of kids.
Yeah, so I think that's the equation.
It's
And
14.
then it's
14.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Oh, it's
And
really
start
getting out there.
stopping. Okay. Decision maker, robot, a person who made a thing which is impossible.
Okay,
And
now
Gavin said useless in India.
Ouch. Okay, now this I found really interesting because about a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago, people would usually associate more positive things when it came to Elon Musk. They would say things like real life Iron Man, innovator. In the past year, though, he's been getting very involved in American politics, and now he's become more of a divisive figure. Some people will say more positive things about him, some not so much, to the point where his main brand, Tesla, right, actually has seen a pretty significant drop in the in the first quarter of this year, right, over 13%, and they're actually being overtaken by some of the other electronic cars in Europe. They've seen a drop of over 50% in their sales and their overall stock price. Okay, a lot of it has to do with his politics and the decisions that he made and the actions that he's taking. So here we have a brand associated with a person getting very, very influenced because of one person's actions. Even though, if you think about it, Tesla is a huge company, but it's usually associated with this guy. So now we're going to talk about building our own brand at work, how people see us, how people deal with us and associate with us. So even before we get to the WIFMs or what's in it for us, what do you feel would be some of the advantage about in building our personal brand, especially at the workplace?
So we have consistency, legacy remains,
Okay,
credibility,
credibility.
it builds your reputation,
Mm,
identity, trust, good reputation and image, network, following, fame, recognition. You become known. Reliability, smart and hard work, popular, perseverance, influence, a lot of positive words.
okay, right. And in fact, a lot of what was written in the chat and what was shared would be part of this. So yes, there is definitely an increase in your visibility when people associate with you. One of the two things I really like about it, it builds your network and attracts like-minded people, meaning you can start building your own community at the office, right? In the same sense that some people will be part of a book club at the office, or they'll be part of a fitness group at the office, or some people are very into certain authors or self-help books, right? And that's usually what they talk about. Personally, when I worked at IBM, there was one person who was very, very into being vegan, not for any particular health reasons, but because he was a serious animal lover. It was on his desk, right? He would talk about it a lot, and you knew that if you asked anything about veganism, he could talk for a long time. Right? And a lot of people associated him with that particular aspect of his personality. Right? Someone mentioned the word credibility, or it builds credibility. Right? Self awareness. This especially if you know who you are, you know what you're about, it gives us an idea of what we're doing and how people are perceiving it. Because, and this is something a lot of us will sometimes forget. The minute we even took our first interview, right, well, in my case, with Anna, or with the TA team of ITBD, we already started building our brand, right? The minute we walked into that door, people already started forming opinions of us. And it's most of it is unconscious, right? We would like to think we're open minded and we approach things without judgment, but whether it's the way people stand, the way they talk, the way they act, the choice of words, right, the way they dress, right, all of that becomes a part of your brand and your overall work and brand identity. And we also have the advantages of increasing your confidence, authenticity, meaning when you know who you are, it's very easy to come up to really be sincere about things, to be genuine about things. And finally, building your legacy. Okay, someone mentioned this as well, meaning when you're not there, even when you exit the door, and you may not even be tied with ITBD anymore, it leaves something behind. What lingers? What is the spirit of what you left behind and your reputation and your brand? Now we're going to go to building your brand using a 5-step process. And the good thing is, many of us are already probably doing this, whether conscious or unconscious. But these are things that you can always keep in mind, things you can consistently practice, just to be more aware of what we're doing and how we're presenting ourselves at work. So the first one, define your purpose. Okay. And what does this mean? It asks this very simple question. All right, who are you and what are you about? All right, that simply means how did you get to where you are and why do you work the way that you do? Okay, we all have different ways of approaching our work, approaching our colleagues. When we accomplish a task, when we approach a task, right? A lot of people will say, "Oh, this person, I like working with this person because they are respectful. They are assertive without being aggressive." Where in some cases, some people like working with people who are a little more driven, a little who will push them to be better versions of themselves. But a lot of us will sometimes enter a workforce or the workforce mainly which is just the idea of earning, of just being part of an organization without really knowing who we are. So if you want to approach this from a corporate standpoint, it's like having your own mission and vision statement for yourself. So, and I will be sharing a handout about this later on. Okay, but here's a little template you can follow. Okay, not something you post on social media or you show people, but this is something you tell yourself. So, meaning if you take a look, so for, and then you mention the people who you are targeting. It could be a particular person, like let's say your manager or your boss, or it could be a group of people, like your teammates, other people on the floor, right? And then you mention the kind of impact you're going to have. Right? What kind of impact do you want to have? Right? A unique, memorable, a meaningful value that you want to provide, meaning something that only you feel you can provide, or you can provide as well as the next guy, right? And then among all the others, right? Of course, there are other people to make other people who can make that difference. But what sets you apart? What is your uniqueness, right? So a lot of this material I got from the Harvard Business Review, which was written by Jill Avery and Rachel Greenwald, and they mention a lot that your uniqueness is your superpower, meaning that particular skill, that particular talent, right? And because of the skill sets, your personality traits, habits, tendencies, and prior experiences, things like that, right? How will you be able to deliver these? Now, if I were to give an example of one person I worked with before, really great at Excel. When it came to making spreadsheets, he was a whiz. You knew you could come to him. But I noticed that a lot of people weren't really going to him when they had Excel questions. They would rather Google it or they would ask other people. And one thing I was noticing was when they had questions and they would ask other people, a lot of people would say, "Ask that guy." We'll call him Paul. He's not Paul, but we'll call him Paul. And even though people would say, "Ask Paul," people wouldn't approach Paul. And I realized that it was for the same reason that I also didn't approach Paul whenever I had Excel questions. Because even though he was really good at Excel and he was good at that particular skill, he had a tendency to be, for lack of a better term, condescending. Like when he talked to you, he'd make you feel kind of dumb or like, "Hey, you should know this because of XYZ reasons." So even though he was his part of his brand was being a very competent Excel person, right? Another part of his brand was someone who would make you feel a little less after each interaction. So we're talking about uh, someone who people could go to, and he would make their lives easier, but he would make them feel a certain way, and that feeling was usually negative. And I don't think he actually realized that. Maybe he thought he was being cute or he was being funny, right? Or maybe he didn't even realize it at all. Okay, which brings us to the idea of being more mindful of how we present ourselves. So, just as an example, so as okay, an example as an IT professional for ITBD, I'm the best cybersecurity manager to work with because of the multiple industry certifications I've earned and the strong leadership and perseverance I developed. Just as an example, again, as a Division 1 college athlete. So this is essentially what have you learned? What are your takeaways? What is your uniqueness? Therefore, what is the value you bring to the organization or the team or a single person? Okay. Step two is okay, auditing your personal brand equity. Okay. Simply put, what do you have to work with? Where are you right now? So first, try cataloging your credentials. Okay, what are your skill sets? What is your experience? Whether it's physical certifications, whether it's your diploma, or what have you learned over the course of your professional life? Okay, what can you bring to the table? What can you bring to an organization professionally? Okay. Secondly, list your descriptors, and this is where it becomes very important for us to be very honest with ourselves. So to speak straight to ourselves and to each other, and maybe even to the point of asking colleagues who you really trust to listen generously to them and ask them. So when you think about me, what comes to mind? When you think about yourself, what comes to mind? This includes everything from the positive to the challenging. If you want, you can do it in columns. And like some people, they know that they are a little maybe on the scatterbrain side, maybe a little chaotic when they work, but they also know they have passion when they work. One of the reasons they're so chaotic sometimes is because they're so passionate, they do many things at the same time. Right. And it's just one of the things that they're very aware of themselves about. And then third, once you've established what these descriptors are, and as much as possible, let's try to use specific adjectives. So just saying nice, kind, right? Let's stick to more things more like accountable or disciplined or maybe aggressive, because we want to be as honest with ourselves as possible and of course as specific as possible. And finally, right, check if that assessment of yourself aligns with the brand that you want to be associated with yourself. Does it show your brand identity? Okay, from there, you already know your brand equity. Where are you? Where do you start from? Which brings us to this: constructing your personal narrative, meaning how did you get to where you are? So the simplest way to look at this is, what's your backstory? How did you get here? If you started working 5 years ago, if you started working 20 years ago, right? How did you get from year one to now? And how did that form you into the brand you are now? And these are, you can always look at personal, actual specific anecdotal evidence, stories, the experiences that you had in life, right? And how did it shape you? How did it mold you into what you are right now, who you are right now, and the brand that you have? And then fourth, there, this is where we represent your brand. And this is the point where we start thinking, as I act, as I behave, as I post on social media, what am I putting out there? Now, if I see, just as an example, if I see someone who has a lot of family pictures on their desk, meaning it's their kids, it's their mother, their father, their spouse, right? I immediately start forming an opinion of this person. If I see they have a lot of, let's say, anime merch, or they have a lot of books or self-help books, and I know, oh, this person is someone who's into this kind of literature, or they're into, let's say, more self-help books or nonfiction. So whether it's Paulo Coelho, whether it's Stephen King, whether it's J.K. Rowling, whether it's fantasy or self-help books, it's all about that. What are the things that we put on our desks, on our social media, especially our posts, right? And these are people who either are very courageous and they know these are my politics, this is part of me, this is what I believe, and they really fight for it, right? They post, they have conversations to the point where sometimes it becomes debates, right? And either it's one, they know that kind of brand that they're putting out there, or two, they may not be aware that this is already building their reputation and their brand with other people, right? To the point where sometimes people will unfriend them because they don't align. And again, that's perfectly fine, because if this is how you want to be seen and this is the brand you want to put out there, right? Don't be embarrassed about it, because you are establishing your brand. So whether it's the conversations you have, your word choice, right, the way that you dress, the way you present yourself, what you put online, whether it's on your LinkedIn, your Facebook, the TikToks that you look at, the things that you like, right? All of these things can be a part of your overall brand identity. Okay, and which brings us to the last one. Don't be afraid to reevaluate and adjust your brand. The person we were 6 months ago may not be the person we are today. Right? I can say, oh, this is my brand today. This is how I want to be seen. This is how I want to be known to people. But in a year from now, I might be different. Right? So make it a consistent thing. Right? Every so often. And they, from the article, they suggest either doing every 6 months or every 12 months. Okay? Take a step back. Take a look at your original brand statement or your personal mission and vision, and just see, is this still me? Is this still who I want to be? Right? And don't be afraid to say, yeah, you know what? I used to believe in this, or I used to want this, but now I think I want something a little different. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with giving yourself room to change your mind, which of course just gives you room to grow. And I hope you were able to get some takeaway from this. And when we give you the handout later on, this is going to serve as your personal guide, or something for you to either download, you can print it out, and it's just something you can always go back to and even fill out. right? To always be aware of the kind of brand that we have at work, right? And how people are going to choose to either relate to us or work with us.